elbows. I am Karin Wolok, a half of your co-host, and this is my other half co-host,
Hey, Yariv, Wolok, how you guys doing?
who's also my brother and all my other things. And we are here with our special guest, 26 years old, serial entrepreneur, investor, blockchain and crypto enthusiast, and philanthropist, Kyle Asman. Thanks for being
Thanks
here,
so much,
Kyle.
guys, for having me on. It's great to be here. I've had a chance to listen to a few other episodes, and they've been fantastic. So I really like what you're doing, and I'm hoping everybody enjoys the show.
Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're able to be here. This is cool. So I want to just we could start from the beginning. You've done a lot and you've had kind of an interesting career path, I think. Well, it seems like it could be kind of standard, but I do have some questions on how you jump these gaps. So do you want to just kind of give people a little bit of background about you?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in northern New Jersey, right outside New York City. My first job was a bank teller. And after that, I was fortunate enough to get opportunities at Goldman Sachs and Duff & Phelps while I was in college. So it's kind of where I started my career, picked up a bunch of my finance knowledge, made a lot of great connections. Then in January of 2018, I started a blockchain business, BX3 Capital, helping companies build and invest in blockchain companies and cryptocurrency-based businesses. I actually sold that in October of 2019 and then launched my current fund, Backswing Ventures, in February of 2020. And now we're investing in Series C and Series A stage businesses and helping a lot of people out.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm curious about your kind of crypto and blockchain experience. How did you get into it? How did that happen? I mean, selling the company in a year and a half is also pretty remarkable on its own, but.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty hot market, but I got into cryptocurrency back in 2016. I used to gamble on a site called Bovada. It was an
I'm familiar with Bovada.
Yep, it was an online sports betting marketplace, and the only way you could get paid out was in Bitcoin. So I was thinking about it, and the first Bitcoin I got on there was $600. I looked at it probably a year later, and it was worth like 10 grand. I was like, whoa. And then I saw, Ethereum and Litecoin on there, knowing Ethereum was a couple dollars, now it's a couple hundred, and Ethereum was like $20 and now it's 2,000. So I bought a couple of those just because they were cheap. And I was like, well, this Bitcoin went up a lot. And then I really started doing my research on it and saw, tremendous value and tremendous opportunity, specifically for large financial transactions across borders. So, all my experience in finance, it's not really that easy to send money around the world. Blockchain and Bitcoin and Ethereum specifically make it a much easier process to send money across borders.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of people. I mean, that's Western Union's whole business. There's so many people sending money. Americans maybe sending money to people, in India or Africa or Latin America where they immigrated here from. Maybe they still have family back there and they're sending money and they're paying like crazy amounts. I mean, to send somebody $100, they're paying like $40. It's 40%. That doesn't make any sense. That's just like crazy. And blockchain is just an easier, safer, faster, way more efficient way to do it. So I think the technology has real value. I think the industry's had its stumbles. It's not really regulated anywhere globally, which makes things a bit confusing for people to figure out what they can do, what they can't do. It's tough for businesses not really understanding how things work, but it's getting much better, and you're seeing big appreciations in price of Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah. So what was that like exploring the unknown? You had obviously an initial company, but what was it like kind of entering an industry that had no rules?
It was exciting.
Good question.
It was really exciting. I mean, I remember my first conference I went to in the space, which was me really meeting a lot of the characters and the players. It was the Bitcoin conference in Miami in January of 2018, and things were just absolutely crazy. I mean, the price had moved from 20,000 to 12,000, but there was thousands of people there, everybody with a new business idea. Rest in peace, but I actually met John McAfee there.
Right. Recently passed
Rock
away.
Pierce, some of the other, really big players who are in the space who are a bit controversial as well for things they've done in the space and, outside of it. But like I said, it was just a weird crew of characters. I mean, you had guys down there in suits and ties from Wall Street trying to figure it out. You had dudes there in their pajamas who owned like $20 million worth of Bitcoin. You had Ferraris parked out front that people were selling only in cryptocurrency. It was really an interesting mix of characters.
Yeah, it sounds like it's almost like the beginning of the .com boom, right? Where like nobody really knew the rules, nobody kind of understood if it was important or not. And I remember I actually bought some Ethereum. I think it was like $34 or something. So my friends were kind of on it early, you know, and it's like nobody could stop talking about it. But also because of that, you know, did you feel like it was risky at all being involved in there, or
I mean,
maybe
it's pretty volatile.
I mean, he was also
That's the
gambling,
thing.
right? So I kind
Yeah,
of assumed that maybe
That's
that
true
was
too.
I mean,
maybe
I have
that's
a
what's exciting.
I have a gambling personality by nature. You know, I was gambling, I was working in investment banking, doing deals, then blockchain, you know, now venture capital. So that's, I mean, you have to have that high risk tolerance by personality. But I would say less of a gamble and more of just kind of sifting through all the crap. Like I said, there's a lot of shady characters down there. You know, a lot of things that were just outright scams and, you know, didn't make any sense. So you just really had to do your homework and make sure you were connecting with the right people. Because there's certainly a lot of bad people down there. But, you know, I met some really incredible, smart people in that space, people who understand technology way better than I'll ever understand different parts of technology and who can explain the coding and how things work. And it's truly fascinating.
Yeah, and that's the thing about blockchain. I mean, when you saw that in general, did you understand that? Because this is the one thing I understand. I don't know the coins probably anywhere as well as you do. But the one thing I definitely understand is the technology behind it, right? And that is definitely not going away at all, regardless if it's
Right.
Bitcoin or whatever. Like blockchain is here to stay. Um,
Mhm.
if people are investing in this market and whatnot, how do you avoid? How do you have like any advice for people to avoid getting, I guess, scammed in some kind of way, or is it
You know,
just the nature of the beast right now?
I would say stick to Bitcoin and Ethereum. Honestly, that's what I trade myself. That's what I invest in myself. Every now and then there's another coin, but even like Mark Cuban, a billionaire investor, that coin he invested in, I forget the name of it, it just collapsed this week. I mean, he lost his whole investment in it. So, you know, that's somebody smarter as a professional investor than most other people. Um, and he got beat up pretty badly on an investment. So I would stick to Bitcoin and Ethereum. They've appreciated in value every single year since their inception in 2009. So I would kind of stay on that train and just buy some and hold on to it.
There is some patterns though in like the growth of those coins and then other coins and things like that too. So like, do you think it makes sense to kind of diversify a little bit?
You know, I think eventually there'll be an ETF or like an investment vehicle that'll allow you to invest in a basket of one. But I would tell somebody without
Oh
an
yeah.
extremely high risk tolerance, it'd be pretty tough to invest in one singular coin. You know, and Bitcoin and Ethereum have a real use, right? Bitcoin's gold. I mean, it's digital gold. It's the
Right.
store of value, and Ethereum's the fastest. So you have the fastest, you have the transaction method, and you have the store of value. So like, you know, that Dogecoin phenomenon that was kind of, you know, driven by the Wall Street Bets group and Reddit a little bit. I mean, Dogecoin doesn't have really any use. It was created as a joke. I mean, somebody coded that up with their buddies for fun,
Yeah.
not for it to be, you know, a multi-billion-dollar asset. I mean, Dogecoin, if it were a company, would be worth more than General Motors, who sells, you know, north of 20% of the cars in America. I mean, it's crazy.
That's insane.
I guess let me ask you this, because I heard Dan Pina, I think is his name, the entrepreneur, talk about this, where he said he knows who started Bitcoin. From what I understand, nobody really knows. I'm sure somebody
Yeah.
knows. What do you think about that, though? Kind of like the unknown source of this technology that, quite frankly, I mean, I see, I don't really deny it, right? It's going to impact the world and almost maybe to the same extent that the internet did in general, especially in the long run. What do you think about that? Does it make you uncomfortable, the fact that we don't know the source of it?
No, you know what? I think one of two things. I don't think anybody knows the source. I mean, John McAfee claimed to know the source. There's been 100 people out there who have claimed, "Oh, I'm the creator. I know the creator." I would say one of two things. It's either a solo individual who's dead, or it's a group who really did have the best interests of mankind at heart. I mean, I think to have a currency out there that's not controlled by any one nation state government is pretty amazing. And I think the fact that nobody knows who it was gives it that much more value. That's not really controllable. There's not, it's not like I create a Bitcoin and you can come over here and influence me or threaten me. Something, anything like that to like change it or benefit you. You can't, right? That's what makes it so good, is that it's so independent from anybody else and no one person has control over it. I remember when I was at my first conference, somebody told me about, we're talking about like cybersecurity and hacks and safety. And they're like, yeah, but you have to be safe from a $5 wrench attack. And I was like, what is a $5 wrench attack? And they're like, well, it's if somebody got a wrench and beat you with it, you would pretty much do anything they wanted you to do to get them to stop. They're like, that's the $5 wrench attack. They're like, if one person has the power to change something or manipulate it or do that, all somebody has to do is get to them and manipulate them or influence them. And that's pretty much it. So I think the fact that Bitcoin isn't controlled by any one person, my guess would be it's a group of people. And, they really understand the importance of keeping it secret. And I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah. It's weird. It's almost like you can throw like conspiracy theories out there and it's like aliens or whatever you want, right? Because it is this kind of game-changing thing that kind of came out under this pseudonym. Do you think that the nature of this coin or whatever, let's say this technology, where I guess the power of it is the strength that it's kind of like self-regulating in a way, do you think that will speed up globalization and connectivity to a dangerous level at some point, where I don't want to say dangerous, maybe that's a strong word, but to a point maybe that's we can't handle the speed in which it's growing and connecting, global economies? Like, do you think it could cause disruption that'll cause maybe, I don't know, warfare or something crazy like that?
Not really, because the economies that are connected are already connected. The
Sure.
U.S., China, Europe, the major Brazil, Argentina, all those countries are already connected and transacting. And the countries that, want to slow it down and don't want to be part of that global system of commerce, like Iran, a couple other countries in Africa that understand that it could also wipe out their currency. Venezuela, Venezuelan money's essentially worthless anywhere else in the world. They've kind of stopped it and banned a lot of the exchanges, et cetera. So I think that, it does have the power to connect some of those people, but the problem is there's still, they still need the information. They still need the access to technology to do it. And it's just not there in some parts of the world still. And until that is, I don't think you'll see massive globalization or connectivity beyond what we see right now.
I think that's fair.
So what do you think the future is for it?
Like I said, I think Bitcoin's going to replace gold at some point as, a store of value. It's liquid, it's easily transactable, and there's a finite supply. And it's a completely market driven. With gold mining, there's people who control the supply. If I owned a gold mine, I could flood the market. I don't own a gold mine. I can't do that, but people certainly could. You can manipulate that price. It'd be tough to manipulate the price of Bitcoin. It's so independent. And it's held by so widely by so many people that it's probably going to keep going. I think ultimately something will overtake Ethereum as number 2. Something that'll probably be even faster, and that'll probably be the method of us transacting in the future.
Interesting. I'm curious about how this is kind of going a little bit off topic from like the blockchain crypto stuff, and we can come back to it later if we want to, but I'm curious about how you made a hop, because like I know that you were like, gambling, you played a little bit with like, you had these like crypto coins and things like that, but going from like being a banker to like, getting a job at Goldman Sachs to like starting an investment fund, like how does that happen? Most people who are bankers, I don't think have the foresight to figure out how to make something like that happen in their career,
Yeah, Goldman's, like I said, an incredible place to work. There's a ton of opportunity there. I think the biggest thing really is if you want to be independent. I've always been independent. I've always wanted to work for myself. I never really liked working for a big company. I like having flexibility. I like working my own hours, even, if that means working at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. I've taken calls at all 24 hours of the day. on all 7 days of the week. But I enjoy that. I enjoy always being kind of engaged, always having something going on. So, that's kind of what drove me, is I've always been very entrepreneurial and a risk taker by nature, and, wanting to do things for myself and, for other people.
Did you feel like you maybe would never fit inside of a box, like in some kind of way? Because obviously you had jobs that are very prestigious places that most people would see as like kind of the pinnacle of their career, but it seems like you
Yeah.
were very okay with, kind of
Yeah,
walking away from that.
I think that they stifle a lot of innovation, actually, and they don't, really allow people to be as successful as they can be. I think the one thing that a lot of big companies fail to do is they just put people into a specific role, and people can build outside of those roles, but the company is a well-oiled machine, so they just want people to play that one role. So people never really innovate, and they get complacent, and they just kind of do their task and go home, and that's it. And I never wanted to be that. As far as or high as I could have got in a major company, I wanted to build something with my name on it for myself.
Yeah, and I really like what you said there, and this is something I even say at my company. I work for a Cigna healthcare company, but I say it all the time, and I'm trying to like lead innovation there. And I say, and this is a company that has to deal with this immensely, especially with HIPAA compliance. Bureaucracy is the killer of innovation, like it really is. And I guess maybe do you think that your experience with that kind of led you to see the potential? And again, I'm just going to crypto for just real quick here. But do you think
The
that
crypto topic is great. We can
yeah,
we
it's
could
just gonna
start all
keep going back to that. But do you think that's partially why you saw so much potential in cryptos? Because you saw this thing that kind of went outside of bureaucracy, like it was kind of
interesting.
uncontrolled by bureaucracy.
Um, you know, I don't think that had a ton to do with it, but it's an interesting point because there's really no bureaucracy in cryptocurrency. Um, you can't even really they tried to get a group together to lobby down in DC. They couldn't even really put that together,
They don't even
even between
understand it.
all those big exchanges and law firms, et cetera, in the crypto space. It's so fragmented. And there's really no bureaucracy. But look at how much they've innovated. They have land registries, all sorts of different payments. That's what really smart people do when they're fairly compensated and you let them innovate. They've built some really incredible infrastructure and things. They've built $1 trillion marketplace. That's not easy to do. The blockchain space was built in $1 trillion marketplace significantly faster than Apple, Microsoft, Google, any of the other $1 trillion companies. If you consider, blockchain a singular company, it's not, quite that easy to put it in that box, but in size, blockchain's gotten there quicker than a lot of those major companies has.
Do you think that and I heard you say this in another interview. Do you think we'll have a Google, a Facebook, a Microsoft within that type of space, or because if you level the playing field, the level of innovation can continue. But if somebody starts dominating the market, that's where things do kind of stagnate. I feel like I don't know if that's the same.
Yeah, I think we kind of see Coinbase already as one of those players. They've kind of defined themselves. As one of the first major public IPOs, a company valued, in the tens of billions of dollars. They're the biggest capital market in the blockchain space and in the US, which is the largest capital market in the world. So I think to a certain extent, they're the winners in the US as far as it goes for the marketplace. I think there's going to be other winners. Square could be one of those winners, actually. It's not a company that many people think of as a blockchain business, but they're very engaged in the space. Ripple could be. They've had some headwinds. They've been around for a little bit. Binance, is the largest global exchange. They're, a pretty big company, pretty big winner. But I still think there's a lot more to come. I think we're in the early innings of the blockchain space. This is kind of like we're past kind of 2000, and to put it in internet terms, we're probably in 2001 or 2002 now. But look at all the innovation we've gotten in the internet after that time. The iPhone, the smartphone. There's just so much to come still out of the space, and I'm just really excited to watch it grow.
Yeah.
I'm curious about if you see it as such a promising industry, you don't really invest in that kind of stuff now in your fund, right? Or are you still...
I look at it all the time. I just haven't seen a good deal at the right price in the space. I did pretty well personally on the NFTs, specifically NBA Top Shot, but there's not, a whole ton of good companies out there right now that I see. I mean, a lot of them are past my stage of valuation, or they're too early. It's just really a speculative space.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there anything, I mean, outside of blockchain, like that you consider as like a next big investment for you? Like, do you plan on like, because I know you have your own company, right? So like, is there, do you have any thoughts of expansion into something else? Maybe even
No,
outside of
I
investment.
mean, we're once I finish deploying all the capital in this fund, we'll launch a fund two pretty shortly.
Yeah. Is there like another avenue of technology though that interests you, or is it? Do you think you just stick to kind of what you know and what you've been good at so far, which is I think
Yeah,
I mean, it's
what
pretty wide, it seems like, the stuff that you guys
yeah,
invest in, right?
we're looking for, so I've tried to bring a financial parameter to it. We're looking for companies with valuations under 10 million who have $1 million in revenue. That's kind of tough to do. There's not a lot of companies, but I'm trying to find companies that fit that niche. I really want companies that are de-risked from a revenue perspective, but have high upside from a valuation perspective. So their value's low, but their revenue is really above where it should be for that valuation, and that gives the companies a ton of upside.
okay,
How do
nice.
you find these companies?
A lot of them reach out to us. Some I find through PitchBook. It's a subscription we have. We network with a lot of law firms, accounting firms, as well, to get deals. And we talk to a lot of other venture groups too.
It's interesting. And so let me go back here, I guess, earlier in your life. So you started this pretty early, right? Like you're younger than the both of us. What did you see yourself as like a kid? Like did you see yourself as like being a financial person when you were younger?
I
Um
can't picture Kyle
yeah.
as a kid.
Or did you have kind of like, because
Man,
I had different kind of dreams, from what I'm doing today, at least to some degree.
you know, um, when I got to college, I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I took a constitutional law class with a judge, and I was like, I have no interest in law. I have no interest in law school. This seems and sounds miserable. I had a mentor growing up. His name was Mark Scheibel. He actually passed away in 2012. He was a trader at JP Morgan during 9/11. He left afterwards. He was in New York City, in the World Trade Towers when, obviously on 9/11, when everything happened. And after that, he left the city. He had a place. I grew up going to the Jersey Shore in LBI, and he would day trade. So when I was like 12, 13 years old, I'd sit there all day and watch him day trade. And I was just fascinated by markets and their movement and what made stuff go up and down. And, he was the one I really credit with getting me into finance. He got me into this mock stock trading game, Wall Street Survivor. I can still tell you the first stock I ever fake bought was Ralph Lauren on there, because I was like 12 and into Ralph Lauren at the time. But he really got me into finance. So I always had an interest for it. And, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer in college. Then I didn't want to be in law school. And, I knew finance was kind of the spot.
What is it about law that, or what is it about this professor's class that kind of scared you away? Because I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying about bureaucracy, and I think law has got a lot of it.
Ah, look at
Yeah.
all these patterns.
Yeah, it probably is a pattern. I mean, yeah, it's like, I'm not a big I'm not a big writer. I felt like law was always a lot of writing. I always like numbers more than words. So I think that was part of it too. But like, I just didn't want to be in school forever. I detest the U.S. college model. I think it's a disgrace that you could get $100,000 in student loans, but if you tried to get a $10,000 business loan to start your own company, you basically no chance of obtaining it.
Yeah.
I'm very anti that, the college system. I view most of my college education outside of, getting an opportunity to play athletics and meet people, really just the networking aspect of it as a waste. I think that if you wanted to be in a specialized trade like law, or medicine, it makes sense. But if you're going to major in like economics or political science, you're better off going and working in industry or starting your own business and getting real life firsthand experience. I mean, there's nothing I learned in any of the college classes I had that prepared me for those real life jobs.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I've been talking about that a lot. I think we're seeing a lot of that publicly too. Like we're having a lot of these experts, You know, there are a lot of people who are labeled as experts on television, and then you find out it's like just because they went to college, they're considered like an expert in their topic. But it's very rarely the case. I mean, if you look at the top of most industries, and it's not that necessarily they didn't, you know, that they dropped out of college. A lot of them did, but a lot of them didn't need college to get them to the point that they were. Do you think that that is a personality type of thing where like they couldn't wait, so they just kind of exploded? Or like I know people, like I have good friends who dropped out of college, started their own companies, and are successful today. You know, they could literally stand 1 year of college. Smart, very smart people.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of just bullshit and crap. I mean, I remember in my first semester, I took a math class that I took in high school. I took an English class that was easier than my high school English, a freshman seminar where I actually ended up getting a C plus because I didn't go on a trip to New York City because we had a lacrosse game
Oh my God.
that day. Yeah, and it was like it's come on, like what did I just spend $20,000 on? Like this is I could have invested that in the market and got significantly better returns. I mean, I think companies need to be more open to that now too. I mean, they use the college degree to eliminate people, but it's so fascinating, especially over the last year. You see all these big companies talk about equal opportunity and equal employment, and providing opportunities to everyone. Yet the first thing they want to do is disqualify people if they don't have a college degree. I just find it, just the hypocrisy with big companies in America is just astonishing, to be honest.
It's interesting you said that. Actually, we kind of was going through like the interview process with Facebook on the side, and the one thing that they were saying to me, and I find ironic because the head of their company, would not go by
Dropped
this.
out of college.
Yeah, and would not go by this metric, is that they're telling me, hey, you literally have to perfectly align with our job requirement. Like they say, if you don't have 10 years, we're not looking at your resume. I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense. Why are you looking for eight? Like, why can't 8 years be enough? Why is it that number of 10? And I feel like it's becoming more of a gatekeeper thing. So as somebody who owns a company, I assume you started hiring at this point. What do you look for when you're like trying to hire people?
People who work hard and are smart and sophisticated, and people who are honest about their limitations too. I mean, like I said, I know we got cut off a little bit earlier, but I said I'm not a technology person. I don't understand. I can't like take apart an iPhone and be like, this is how it works, this is how it operates. That's not what I know. I know finance and I know people, but I'm smart enough to know my limitation and find people who do understand that technology and can tell me how it works and break it down and regurgitate that information for me. So, I'm looking for people who are like, hey, look, I don't know everything, but this is what I do know, and this is how I can help. And I'm willing to work hard, and I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to go to the right people and find the right people for things I don't know.
What do you define as working hard?
Oh.
Um, that's funny because I mean, working, you can go into the whole working hard, working smart thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I define working hard as somebody who's always interested in growing, one, growing themselves, and two, growing the business. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an amount of hours.
Right.
It's one of the things I hated about big companies. They had this idea that if you were not in the office, you were not working. You could not possibly be working anywhere outside the office. I mean, Goldman's the first company to put their employees back. It's absolutely no shocker there. But I mean, that's ironic. Yeah, I mean, hard work is, somebody who's just always driven to just continue growing themselves and, growing the business. And that, they care about the two things in tandem, because I mean, you want people who care about your business, but at the end of the day, everybody cares about themselves too. I mean, it's human nature. You're going to care about yourself first. How do I grow myself? Most people are just thinking, how do I make more money? But really smart people want to grow themselves and gain more knowledge and more experience, be more versatile as humans.
Yeah. But I was thinking about that as you were saying it, because one of my least favorite statements that I've heard kind of working for companies is work hard, play hard. I think if a company tells you that, leave, because it means they're going to underpay you. Like that's like literally what I assume when they say that to you. Because if they're talking about play when it comes to work, it's like, but I really like what you said actually. And the one reason I've been at Cigna for a while, to be honest with you, is that they actually do. They've all of a sudden been like super open to the idea of like, no, like as long as you deliver your work, work remotely? Like, do you think that, kind of like a model like yours and what you're doing with your company, even on the smaller companies, because you guys have money to pay people too, right? It's not like people who work for small companies don't make money anymore, right?
Oh, I
Do you,
mean,
do you
most Americans are employed by small businesses, but
yeah.
I have an idea where you're going with it. So I gave a couple of interviews, one to Authority Magazine back in 2019 and one to Entrepreneur Magazine. This was before COVID and before work from home and work remote was really popular. And it talked about how we gave all of our employees unlimited vacation and really just empowered them, right? If you want to take Tuesday off and work on Sunday, like be my guest, right? Everybody has a role in an organization and a company and things they need to get accomplished. And as long as they do them, in a manner consistent with the timeline or the deadline that you need things completed, I don't really care where you work from or how you get it done, as long as it gets done. And I'm only really hiring people who I feel have that level of self-intelligence and work ethic to get things done on their own. I don't want to be a babysitter. I don't want to hire people and, oh, what do you need today? What should I do today? Where should I work from? What time do you want me in the office? Like, I want people who are like, look, this is the task you have me set out to do. This is when I'm going to have it done by. Let's reconvene then. Those are the type of people I want.
I feel like there's a lot of people who have kind of their own different styles and different timelines of what works for them too, and like putting everyone in the bucket saying 9 to 5 or whatever is like automatically assuming that everyone's a morning person, I'm a morning person. So for
Me too.
10 to, I'm like at my high point between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. That's it. Right
Yeah,
now, this is my off.
after 4 p.m. I'm usually up at 5 a.m. every day. From like 6 a.m. to like noon, I am so productive. From noon to like 3, I'm kind of productive. After 4 o'clock, I'm just like, it really has to be pertinent to get me perked up for it.
Right, but see, not everybody fits that same mold. So
Yep.
like I've been working remotely for a while, for like, I don't know, 5+ years or something now. So like now that everyone's jumping on the remote bandwagon, but people are jumping on. And I remember seeing this like when I was at my last job, where like all these people were coming on remotely and they were expecting, like they assume that they have to be responsive all the time to everybody for all the things. But I'm like, you don't have to. You could just respond whenever you want. And if you like, if you're a remote worker, that, you've adopted that kind of like break between being able to make your own hours and what works for you. But I think the world's kind of still adjusting to that.
So here's a good poll I have. I had this discussion with somebody earlier today. This is one of my favorite questions to ask people. I get really bad anxiety over things. So would you rather not have your phone and just be free from the phone? You don't have the phone. You don't have any worry. Nobody can get in touch with you. Is that a better feeling? Is that a worse feeling? Or is it worse knowing like the anxiety of, is it better to have your phone, right, and know exactly what's going on, but you're attached to it, or not have it, and then you have that anxiety of what am I missing?
That's really tough.
I would say it's having the phone, right? Having the control.
I don't know. I feel like it's half and half, right? It's like, it depends on the day. Like if it's like a Saturday afternoon, I think aside from like hearing from like the people I love to like make sure everything's okay, aside from that, like I'm good. I don't need it, but every other day I kind of need it, I don't know. What's
Yeah.
yours?
Yeah. Curious.
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I spend a lot of time in the Bahamas. I was out on a boat this week and I didn't have any access to the phone. And it's like so liberating, knowing like literally anything could be happening in the world. And you're just out there on the water and nobody can get to you. No one can reach you. No one can bother you. But on the flip side of it, then you start coming back to like land and you're like, oh my God, I wonder what I'm missing. Like, am I going to open up my phone and find a disaster? Or am I going to be pleasantly surprised and absolutely nothing happened and everything's all good and I'm just worrying about nothing? I actually prefer not having the phone. I think it's so nice. Just it's like more peaceful. You can't worry about it because you can't control it. I've said this for a long time about flying. I love flying because people can't reach me on the phone when I'm on the plane. I never buy Wi-Fi. I'm on the plane. I'm not working. That's it. Like it's like flying is like the most therapeutic time for me because no one can bother me. I don't have control over anything. I don't have access to anything. I just sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Do you?
This
sorry.
summer, this summer I was at the Dave Chappelle summer camp, and Dave Chappelle lost his phone for a minute, right? Just misplaced it. And he's like, "Where's my phone?" And I'm like, I don't know. Do you want me to help you find it? And he's like, "No, it's probably nothing good anyway." And that's it. He just let it go. And I was like, it's a really good point.
Yeah. Oh, and do you find yourself kind of baking that into your day now, where you're kind of like you said, like you're done like after 4? Do you kind of give yourself like,
No, I wish. I wish I should. I don't. I'm attached to the phone at the hip.
yeah,
Like I might as well have it like a little holster for it and carry it around with me. I'm trying to spend more time away from it though, just like picking times, like Karim was saying, like a Saturday, and just leaving it at home. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what, no one's gonna bother me. I mean, it's more likely that less is gonna be going on a Saturday than, I mean, it would be a bit unprofessional if I just like ditched my phone from like, you know, Monday through Wednesday.
yeah,
Yeah, you
And
can't
you know,
really
people
do
are
that.
like, you can't be unresponsive either. But I'm just saying, it's an interesting question I ask people. Just, you know, what their preference is, what's more liberating.
It can also feel a little irresponsible too, if you know, are not responsive. Like if you're running a business or even doing anything, right? Even for me, like I'm not running a business. Like I lead the marketing for a software company, but like if I don't answer my phone for 3 days in the middle of the week, that's irresponsible. If I don't
Yeah.
answer my phone on the weekend at all and I'm like completely disconnected, that's not.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of live by the 24-hour rule. If somebody reaches out to me, it doesn't matter what day, what time it is, I always get back to them within 24 hours. You know, I think that's like a super
Good rule.
reasonable standard. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, sometimes if I'm on my phone, sometimes I answer people like a minute later. You know, sometimes I have to think about it. Sometimes I need to talk to somebody about how I want to answer something. So, you know, it might take a little longer, but you know, I think if you're getting back to people within 24 hours, it's extremely fair.
Yeah, I think it's the like maybe it's maybe considered like emotional self-control, because like a lot of times maybe you just need to like personally like look at the message that's coming in. Like I like what you said there, right? A lot of times like maybe you really just need to think about it, right? Like you read the message and be like, okay, well I got the message. I don't need to respond now, right? I can respond later, but it's like just because sometimes your initial thought isn't the right one anyway, right? Like sometimes especially if it's something frustrating, right? You might want to snap at somebody where you really can kind of take a
Yeah.
step back. Do you find like that's kind of more the balance as we move forward? Because I imagine now in the position you're in, you're saying 24/7, right? Which I believe, right? And I think a lot of us are going to start heading in that direction as well. And just in general, like the weekend model will probably disappear over time. Do you think that it's really more about self-control and the ability to just not respond, but also know to get back to people like within that 24-hour time frame?
Yeah, I mean, you have to get back to people. That's one thing people want, is you to be
Yep.
responsive in any business. You know, I would want that if I was, you know, if you are calling a customer service line for any company, you want somebody on the phone immediately. You don't want to wait 20 minutes. I
Mhm.
mean, again, you don't want to, like you said, you don't want to jump to answer people in like a minute. Some things are easy to answer, you know, they're simple yes or no, but there's things that take a little bit more time and nuance to answer. And, you know, I think that, like I said, if you live by the 24-hour rule, nobody's ever going to be really pissed off. You know, one of the reasons I end up being so 24/7 though, is I have clients across the globe. I mean, I have people in time zones 12 hours over. So, you know, like I might be going to bed, you know, at 10 or 11 o'clock, but for somebody else, that's like prime time. That's 9 or 10 in the morning. So they're reaching out and they expect an answer. So, you know, it's like, you got to get up first thing in the morning and, you know, start answering people. Um, it's tough doing business with different time zones for, you know, for that reason. It's just
Yeah, you get
there's
like
always something going on.
it's one email every day. There's one response, one response. Yeah, I think the issue is with the phone though too, is that like it basically tells you when to look at it. You know, I keep my phone on vibrate now, but like it's still like it notifies me when I'm supposed to look at it. And either that or like I have the emotional stressors that I'm like, I need to look at my phone. And those things aren't healthy. Like if you could block it out where you're like, all right, I'm only gonna spend there's gonna be 3 times in the day where I'm gonna check my phone and just tackle that thing. But it's not realistic, but that might be like the best way to
So
actually approach it.
I keep my phone on silent all the time. And unless I know somebody, like personally, I have their number in my phone. If somebody does not leave me a voicemail, I never call them back.
I do the
Because it's
exact
like,
same
if
thing.
it's not important enough for you to spend 10 seconds to say, hi, it's, you know, Jimmy, I'm calling to let you know about this. Give me a call back. I'm not wasting my time calling a number I don't already have on my phone.
Do the same thing. It's probably a scammer.
Yeah,
It's all
that's usually what
scammers
it
for
is.
me. That's the only phone calls I get.
Yeah.
You know, so somebody somebody man, must have played the best prank on me ever. I have no idea who it was to this day, but somebody put an ad out on like Craigslist or some other site. They got my number, and they said I had a poodle for sale, or a litter of poodles for sale in California. I get calls like, still, like, I got like 3 calls a day every day for like 2 weeks. And now every now and then I'll answer my phone just because somebody will call on my phone in my hand. They'll be like, "Hey, do you still have any of those poodles for sale?"
That is pretty awesome.
Oh my God, you don't even know who did that?
No, I wish I did, because like I wouldn't even be
Oh,
mad
good.
about it. I think it's so good
No, it's
that I would just be
amazing.
like, "Good one, man. Like,
Yeah.
you got me good." But yeah, it is the best. It's the best prank somebody's ever played. And it's totally harmless too. You know,
Yeah,
it's not like it's just like fun. I just think it's funny. But yeah, I get calls still to this day. I get probably 1 call a month, and somebody's like, "Hey, what's going on with the poodles?"
That's so strange.
That is amazing. It's like code for some kind of coin that you're not aware of. It's like some underground.
Oh,
No way.
maybe.
No way.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
like the new Doge.
Brutal coins.
I can tell you, I got sim jacked in January of 2019, and that was one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had.
Wait, what's
Really?
SIM jack mean? What does
Somebody
that
took
mean?
your SIM card.
So
Oh.
yeah, so somebody
Oh,
actually
that's horrific.
the guy got indicted. It was a big crime ring. He sim jacked like a couple hundred people. But I was sitting there, and like my phone service just went out. And I just like, sometimes that happens. You get in a bad service zone. So I put in airplane mode, like, out. And then it's telling me no SIM card. And I'm like, pretty sure my SIM card's in my phone. And then I went to like log into my email, and it's like, your password was changed like 20 minutes ago. And I was at a charity casino night. And I was like, I definitely wasn't
No
changing my email
way.
password. And then I went to so where I lived in New Jersey at the time, we didn't have local police. So I went to the state police station, and they're like, somebody stole your SIM card. Like, you've got to report it in like the town where it happened. Like, somebody robbed you there. And I went to that town, and they're like, "All right, well, who was at the event?" And I was like, no. I was like, this was not anybody at the event. This was, that was a charity event. I was like, no one like physically stole something from me. I said somebody like ported my SIM card, like, from the phone company. And then I went to like 4 different police departments that night, and nobody had any idea what I was talking about. Somebody else connected me with this task force the FBI has, and they got to the bottom of it pretty quick. They were super helpful. But that was terrifying. Like, you have no access
That's
to anything.
horrific.
I lost my email. I never got it back. I lost that phone number. I never got it back. I lost you feel like you're without a person. Like, you don't have an email or a phone. You're like, well, I walked around for an entire weekend with no email or phone. And it was like, people could not have gotten in contact with me if they wanted to.
That's not the right kind of freedom.
It's
That's
no,
not
it
the
just
right kind of freedom.
even aside from that, right? It's just like, that's like really terrifying that somebody could just take that and change your password. Oh my God. That would like give me a
everything. Just bank accounts, tax returns,
how
freaking your Pandora account. I couldn't even get back into Pandora.
Man,
wow.
that is freaky.
Yeah,
that's horrific.
There's a bunch of people out there who've written about it and their experiences. It's like a terrible type of crime. Just the ransomware now is pretty terrible too. I mean, we had, one of the largest suppliers of meat and pretty much all the East Coast gasoline was shut down for like 2 weeks. It's crazy, man. I mean, as the technology evolves, so do the criminals too. I mean, whew.
It's funny. I was actually telling my sister this, and she'll probably remember, probably like 5-6 years ago, that I thought that one of the business models that'll grow will be like digital detective agencies.
Yeah.
That you'll be able to hire personally, like especially wealthy people who have money. Even like a celebrity, they get their phone hacked, stuff gets stolen, and then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? They need somebody to like kind of go out and get there. Maybe they
My
don't.
friend works for a digital forensics company. That's what they do.
Yeah.
There's a
company I use now, Brand Yourself. So they're not like a credit monitor. They're more like a reputational monitor. So for me, what they do is they promote like the top things about me on Google. Knock on wood, I'm lucky I don't have any negative things. But if there were negative things, they bury them and they alert you anytime something pops up. So if anything pops up on Google or, any social media platform with my name in it, they know immediately. And if they flag it as something negative, like I get a call from them like almost immediately. And they'll just be like, hey, we just want to let you know this popped up on XYZ website. Don't know what you wanted to do about it, but, just wanted to let you know it's out there. So they do a good job of scrubbing your data offline too. If your social security, your birth date, or personal info is being sold on the dark web or just on any of those people finder sites, they do a really nice job and they charge like $15 a month. So I've been really happy with them. I got into that after I got SimJack because I was just like worried about what was out there. If somebody put like my tax returns out there or anything like that online, and they did a really nice job. Yeah,
that's really scary.
No, I totally agree. And I think that that's a real thing. And actually, this is like a thought I had a while ago. I don't know if this might actually already exist already, but I kind of thought that that's maybe where blockchain can play a role as well with our data, right? Like I was thinking about digital like cyanide pills, right? Like essentially, like if you take stuff off my machine, right, like my images or anything like that, like the source of it can be kind of cut off. And like maybe I send somebody a text message or a picture or something, but it's really just an image or a mirror of something that I actually put out there. So like if it actually gets out there, you can kind of cut it off at the source, and then that the end point becomes kind of null and void in some kind of way. I don't know if that ever exists, but I was kind of thinking with a blockchain technology and the way that everything communicates, right? Is there some kind of way to take advantage of that where there's like a one true source of data, so you feel a little more secure? If people go out there, you can kind of cyanide pill your stuff.
There certainly is. The problem with a lot of the data ecosystems now, and how people are even getting into the government, is they're going in through vendors. So that might be good, if American Express or Visa did that, right? But is every bank that issues those cards going to do the exact same thing with all their data to protect people? If not, you're going to have weak points in the chain, and that's what these hackers have really been exploiting. Is where are the weak points and vulnerabilities. So you need like a total move to blockchain. But yeah, blockchain could be a long-term solution for that. The government moves so painfully slow.
Yeah.
And, like we were down there in 2018 and 2019 talking to different senators and congressmen about cryptocurrency in the simplest of terms and why there is a need for regulation and the government to get involved. It just goes right over their head. They have no idea. They have no idea. They have so much going on, and like it's just not a priority. The truth is there's not enough money behind it. That's why you need a lobby, is to drive regulation for, emerging industries. But there's not a lot of money behind it. It should be bipartisan too. It's not even really like political. Like everybody should like it. It's innovation. They should want it here in the US, and they should want to support it and, create a framework that allows it to grow. That's not even political. It's just good business and, good protecting America's future. Right now, I can tell you of the technology we see, the best technology does not come from America. It comes from Israel. Israeli technology is 3-4 years ahead of where the United States is, pretty much across the board, specifically in cybersecurity and blockchain, but pretty much across the board, they're 3-4 years ahead. I don't look at a lot of technology in China. I'd be very hesitant to invest in something in China just because it can be shut down virtually overnight. It's tough getting money in and out of China. China's just not really, there's a lot of capital there, but as far as outside investment, it's just not a robust marketplace yet.
Yeah, and I love what you said there, and it's definitely true about cybersecurity. If you look at like most of the big, even Fortune 50 companies, they have a cybersecurity office in Israel. Like Microsoft, for instance, definitely has theirs there. And the one thing that you definitely, and again, this is not to get political, but I do kind of see people, and again, we're both Israelis, so obviously we have a connection to this. But people always wonder why the United States gives money to Israel. And it's constantly this whole thing of, oh, Israel needs to defend itself. It needs money for anti-rockets. I'm like, no, has nothing to do with that. That is an incubator of innovation, medicine, and technology. I was like, they give money because it's an investment. And if you see what Israel does, it's not really that surprising.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Look at that. I forget who it was. I don't remember if it was the Boston bomber. No, it was the San Bernardino shooter or bomber back a couple of years ago. And the government wanted to get access to his iPhone. And Apple was like, no way, we're not unlocking that thing. And the FBI was like, we don't know how to do it. And they paid an Israeli company to do it, and they had it done in like a day.
Yeah, and I think they like just figured out how to make it not lock by trying passwords. So like you could try a password. Usually the phone locks after 3 passwords. So they just figured out how to get rid of that, and then just had the system just
They
try
had
and
an
work
algorithm just go through the entire.
But that's literally what they did. But yeah, you're right. That was
I
a
mean, they
big deal. I
figured it
remember
out.
that story. Mhm.
The FBI sat there on their hands.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah, it's a very real thing. We talk about it like being Israeli. My mom like can't stop talking about how far ahead Israel is in technology than everybody. She's like so proud of it all the time. But even like the
It's like her
text
third
message,
child.
right? Yeah, I mean like most people probably don't know this, that even like the FaceTime technology in your phone that comes from an Israeli company. The SMS was invented in Israel, right? Like the text message. It's just nobody really thinks about that stuff. But it's, the one thing about America is we know how to leverage it properly, like you were saying. And I think that's kind of what makes America great in that sense, is that we recognize that and we're willing to be global, right? And willing to take advantage of all these companies and be open to that, I think, to some degree.
Yeah, like I said, you got to realize what you know how to do well and what you don't know how to do well. And you got to find the people who can do it well.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because you're a pretty young business owner, right? I mean, you obviously have dealt with this quite a bit.
He's very young. He's 26.
Yeah. I mean, obviously.
What was I doing when I was 26? I was like just a disaster.
Getting out of college. I was getting out of college essentially. But as a young business owner, like, what did you learn that was unexpected? Like, if you had anything that kind of came across that you're like, oh, I did not see that coming.
Oh man. I mean, you learn something new pretty much every day. Just like things you do, decisions you make. You just got to surround yourself with people who have your best interests at heart and are really there to help you. And people who can do things that you can't. I've found that opposites attract really well. If you can partner with somebody in a business or hire people who do things that you don't do or don't know how to do or don't do particularly well, that's really one important thing in a business is having that support system and those people around you. And it's just like, when you're running a business, especially as a young business owner, I mean, you just have to like be ready for situations and things that you can't even imagine. Something new every day, which is kind of what makes it so exciting. You never know what you're going to run into, but I mean, there's just so much unknown all the time. So it's like you said, I think the biggest thing is people. You need to have the right people around you that work for you and work with you well. I think that's the biggest piece of advice I'd give to anybody starting a business. And the other thing I'd tell people too is, I mean, you can't be afraid to lose. I mean, you might blow up. Your business might blow up. It might not get anywhere. You might never make $1. But if you learn from it, you have a chance to recover and take what you learned and apply it to the next business and, build back better and grow.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How did you get to the point where you were able to find the right people around you? Was it like trial and error? Do you think you got lucky? Like you said, the opposites attract.
I think it's a lot of trial and error. You find out what doesn't work. You find out what doesn't work, and that kind of helps you figure out what does work, right? I mean, sometimes you learn what you like from knowing what you don't like. I think that's one of the biggest things to be cognizant of.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Did you have anything, Karin? You look like you.
No, I didn't. I was thinking about, I was like, I wanted to kind of think about like some kind of piece of advice, but he gave some really good advice at the end about keeping good people around you that have your best interest, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could ask about the future. Like, what do you have coming? Well, do you have something, Yariv?
Yeah, I guess the last thing I had here that I had like written down as a note, and again, this is something I heard you say in an interview. You mentioned coins in particular, and you said that coins, like the coins that will survive, are the ones that have a use. Can you expand on that a little bit? Like,
yeah, like Dogecoin, right? I mean, it's easy to hate on it. It doesn't really have a use. Like, there's no intrinsic value. It's not built. It doesn't have its own network. It's not particularly good for transacting. It's not particularly good for storing value. There's really no intrinsic value to it. I mean, there's just not a lot of value.
It's
there.
monopoly money.
Yeah, it really is monopoly money in a sense. I mean, that's like a speculative asset that somebody made a lot of money on. And, power to them. I hope everybody makes money and prospers, but there's just like no value there. There's so many of them that just have no value. There's Shibu Uno was created to be like a Dogecoin competitor for like people to just buy. Like, there's so much crap out there. Something like that will never make it. Something like Ripple, something like a Binance token where there's, a real value to it. Dash, Monero, those things will make it. They have real use cases to it, but you have to have a real use case. It can't just be, oh, we want to launch a coin because we want to make money. That's not a winning strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any value in the predictive technology coins, right? Like I think Rep is one of them as well that, like kind of takes into account people like working all over the internet to try to make predictions. And then you do that like a kind of a hive mind, like wisdom of the crowd type of thing where you're trying to, calculate the odds of things going on in the world. Like, do you think that that is a good avenue or do you think that it's also a little too
I think
exploratory?
this is what I tell a lot of people about these tokens. I think that's a good business. I mean, that's predictive analytics, what you're talking about.
Yep.
Predictive analytics is a good business. I mean, everybody wants to use data, or any smart business owner or, investor analyst is using as much data as they can and algorithms to make future projections. But like, why does that need to be tokenized? I mean, there's really no need for a token in that business. It's just a data projections business. There's no need to have a token for that. I mean, it's a company needing to capitalize itself, and instead of selling its equity, it's selling a token, and getting lucky people are buying a token that's, I guess going to trade in tandem with the value of the company. You don't own anything. You don't get any profit interests. You don't own debt on the business. You don't own equity on the business. It's just like kind of like a proxy. So like the business makes sense, but the need for a token just doesn't. And that's, I think, the most common thing you see with a lot of these shit coins is that the businesses make sense, but there's just no need for a token. And that's why they're shit.
Yeah, no, I think, and I saw a lot of celebrities kind of making tokens and coins and stuff like that. And do you see that as like kind of mini pyramid schemes?
Well, so there's something called a Reg A plus offering where you can raise, I believe it's 75 million now, from unaccredited investors. So the definition of an accredited investor right now is somebody who has over an income over $250,000 annually or over $1 million in assets, excluding their primary residence. So if you file under what's called a Reg A, you can raise money from anybody at a valuation, you can raise up to $75 million from any investors, non-accredited or accredited. So like, I would advise people, like someone like Drake, right? If he's launching his whiskey brand or a product line, and he has a built-in audience. So for him to do something like that and raise money from his audience, like a celebrity, is smart. I mean, Mayweather did something. I actually think he got fined by the SEC for it. But for somebody like that, like he's got a large, tens of millions of followers. So, I mean, it makes sense for him financially. I'm not sure that it makes sense for anybody to be buying it other than to be giving, money to their favorite celebrity. But I mean, it certainly makes sense for them. If you want to make money off your fan base, it's a slam dunk.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I think it's getting close to Kyle's bedtime. He wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
That was my first yawn, but I'm an early bedtime guy.
I saw you held them back a little bit. It was like coming and you're like, no, don't, like it's one of those, yeah.
Hey, I get it.
But I know we kind of like, I mean, I thought the conversation was amazing. So like, that's why I was like, oh, we could just kind of keep it going this direction. But I am curious about, like, we can just kind of use this as a wrap up question, about like, what is next for you? Like, what are you working on? What's next? Just in the future for Kyle.
Yeah, like I said, I'm working on this. I'm working on this fund right now. Obviously, I want to get all the capital deployed. I want to get a couple exits. I want to definitely raise the second fund, and then we're doing some humanitarian work in the Bahamas. So I have a good connection to Abaco, which was hit by Hurricane Dorian, Category 5 hurricane, September 1st, 2019, the most destructive hurricane in the history of the world. So we've been down there. We helped rebuild a school. We helped build a couple local businesses. We've donated books, computers. So we've done a lot to help the community. So I've been going back and forth from the Bahamas a ton, and really trying to help the people out down there. That's just been a connection I've had. They're really awesome, authentic people down there. So, like I said, I've been doing all we can to help them. But that's kind of been, the two things I've been really the most focused on right now is getting this fund, all the capital deployed in quality deals, and doing a lot of work in the Bahamas to help the people down there.
If people want to contribute, is there a way for them to get involved in what you're doing, or is it more just on your scale? After the hurricane originally hit, they raised so much money to help people, and most of the money never went to the people. It went to the governments. It went to people's pockets. Unfortunately, there's not the best way you can help is go visit the island, and spend tourism dollars, go out to eat, surf, rent a boat, take a vacation.
I'm in.
Yeah. Whatever you can do to go support the local businesses, that money gets back into the economy. That's really the best way to do it. There's not
love that
a really strong way to just donate money down there.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, we had John Gosia on the episode there too, and on the second episode, and he was talking about that, how he was dealing with like the Clinton Foundation and how they were donating money to Africa. He's like, don't just give money, for food. Like, give me the money and I'll spread it in jobs. Like, I'll give people employment. And
there's a company I recently looked at called One Deeds. They're actually based. It's an Israeli company, and their thing is One Deeds.
One Deeds.
So yeah, they're kind of like GoFundMe, except you don't donate money. So let's say I had a charity for newborns, right? You go right on their website and they partner with Amazon. So you go right through Amazon, buy baby formula, diapers, baby toys, etc., and it goes direct to them. It just gets shipped right to them. And I think that's a lot of people's problem with donating money to charities is there's a lot of overhead, and a lot of the dollars never make it to the people who need it most. But like, if you could donate a product, I mean, what are a bunch of guys who are running a baby charity going to do with like a bajillion diapers? Like, I mean, yeah, I guess they could take them and resell them. I think that's very unlikely though. They're not paying themselves a salary in diapers or baby formula. Yeah. But I think that model is fantastic because things get directly to the people. And I think people have more of a connection to giving and doing things charitably when they see the impact that they're making directly. I mean, you give, $100,000 to the American Cancer Society, fantastic. They do a lot of work on the cancer side, but I mean, about 50% of the money they raise goes into their operation. So only about 50 cents on every dollar is actually getting to someone who needs it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And we see a lot of that, unfortunately. I mean, even the NFL got caught, several years ago, right, with that whole pink, and they don't even need the money. And they still, I think it was like 10% of the money was making it to breast cancer, if I remember correctly. It was something really small.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And you figure how many of the merchandise and clothing and everything they sold. So I love that recommendation. And that's why I asked, because it's like, it's very hard. Like I have a small company on the side, Flyers Nitty Gritty, and we like kind of refuse to do anything for charity because we're like, we're not going to ask people for money. It's like, what are we going to do with your money? How can I guarantee that your money is going to go to the right things? So we steer really hesitant. So maybe that's a recommendation I'm going to make to people in the future.
Yeah. Like I said, I talked to the company for the first time about 2 months ago. It's a really interesting company. It's a really interesting model. I think what they're doing is really fantastic. I mean, there's a charity in Delaware called the Be Positive Foundation as well. So that pays the bills for parents of kids who have childhood cancer, so their parents can be with them through the treatment. So, if your kid has cancer, hopefully nobody in the world ever has to experience it again, but I'm sure unfortunately people do every day. You want to be there, obviously. I don't have any kids, but I would imagine you'd want to be there all the time. And you can't be because you have to work, but that's where they kind of come in and are like, hey, look, we're going to take the financial pressure off you so you can worry about, your family's medical health. So like, that's another thing where it's like direct. I mean, you're directly paying somebody's bills for them. It's like, hey, here's, I need $73 for the electric bill. Here's $73. It's not like, just round donations and it goes into a pot and it never gets dispersed. So that's another charity that does well because, people can feel the impact that they're making.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Kyle, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this with us. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It was really insightful. I learned a lot.
Yeah, this was great. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So for those watching, like, subscribe, comment, send to a friend. I'm learning how to do the closing of the podcast. Yariv's like training me. He's like, just say like, subscribe, comment. Like, subscribe, comment. Like, subscribe, comment. Like, subscribe, comment.
Yeah.
All right. And we'll see you at the next one.
All right. Thanks, Kyle. Bye.
Thank you.